All things international. Richard Haydarian, he is a senior lecturer at the University of the Philippines Asian Center. Richard, good evening. Thanks for joining us again. Didiretsohin ko na. This proposal, what do you think of it? Are there actually countries charging the U.S. for the use of their bases?
Right. Good evening from BGC Taguig.
Sa Makati ba yan? Makati or
Nasa restaurant
Makati
lang naman ako eh. I mean, at least one of those two senators is a lawyer, last time I checked. So sana naman medyo nagbasa tayo, no? As far as the EDCA itself is concerned, very clear dun sa Article 3. If you look at the paragraph 3, it says, given the mutuality of benefits, the parties agree that the Philippines shall make agreed locations available to the U.S. forces without rental or similar costs. So nandun na po yan sa agreement sa EDCA. Now, if you had any disagreement with it, sana noon pa lang, no? Nung nine-negotiate pa lang ng EDCA, or before ito ay ma-clear ng Supreme Court of the Philippines, dapat na-raise na yan. But by now, there's already the EDCA agreement. So I suggest our good senators to read first ano yung nandun sa agreement before making this kind of comments. I am not against getting more out of the Americans or any kind of alliances that we have. I am not against that per se. But what I'm saying here is that I'm not sure if this is empty posturing or really a substantive intervention when clearly tapos ng usapan, andyan na yung agreement. And you think the Americans are just going to say, oh, of course, we're going to give you extra rentals even if the agreement says otherwise because you guys are so nice and so tough. So yun lang. I'm not sure if this is just performative.
Richard, endorsement, ex-deal lang.
Exactly. Yun yung sasabihin ko, may ex-deal na naman tayo, di ba? I mean, okay, some analysts have weighed in. I think even you, Richard, you obviously sometimes say na, you know, America stands to gain more, but we're not going completely empty-handed here. We are getting some donations going towards our military modernization, right? AFP modernization.
Yeah.
We're getting some things out of that. So, would there be really any basis or goodwill na lang siguro? Parang, huy, pahingi naman ng rent. Baka sabihin ng US, oh sige, bigay na namin.
Right. Ako, actually, again, I raise that not because I'm against getting more out of or any of alliances. I'm raising that because I'm saying, andun na yung agreement. So sana magbasa tayo bago magana tayo. But, having said that, I do advise our good senators, if they really want to get more out of our alliance with the U.S., to focus on, for instance, the foreign military financing of the U.S., the so-called FMF. The Americans have been giving us like what, around $100 million a year as an FMF. Now, that may sound a lot, but just to put things into perspective, there are countries in the Middle East who get billions of dollars every year, even if they're not facing something like a giant China. Ukraine last year, of course, it's an extreme situation, but they got $42 billion in military aid from the United States. So, $100 million is a little bit, alam niyo na, di ba? Medyo barya-barya yan when you put things into context. So, I am 100% for asking more from any of our alliances and partnerships. Pero sana naman, wag tayong mag-comment dun sa mga tapos ng usapan. This is a matter of negotiating on other fronts where we should get more out of our alliance. And at the same time, siguro yung mga Amerikano, kasi I think nag-allocate lang sila ng $180 million. Eh yung mga EDCA sites na iba dyan, literally site lang. Alam mo, there's no camp, there's no building, nothing. So I think you need billions of dollars to develop those facilities if ever they want to build really massive facilities here, which I doubt. Mukhang on the chip lahat yung mga nangyari dito. So my advice to the good senators is that maybe noon pa lang dapat sana nag-raise kayo ng comment or push for a new agreement totally with Americans, maybe an addendum or something new to the EDCA. Or as I said, on FMF and other parallel defense initiatives that we have the Americans, doon dapat sila mag-push for more.
Given what you said, sabi mo, medyo huli na nga. No? Why do you think our lawmakers agreed to this provision na rent-free, given also the history of our bases, and given the current state of geopolitics, how important the Philippines is, also considering napaka-delikado, napaka-laki ng risk to have these bases near the areas of conflict, lalo na in Taiwan?
Right. Again, mahabang usapan yung sa Taiwan, I know we can have in our discussion that. Now, going back to this, my contention is, I agree with where senators like Senator BATO are coming from. Perhaps ang sense nila, yung EDCA ay medyo lopsided. I don't think it's just good for US, may benefits yan sa Philippines. Pero aminin natin, medyo lopsided siya. Bakit kamo? We know very well that nung una ni-negotiate natin ng EDCA, we're asking for other things. For instance, we're asking the Americans to lease some of their warships or submarines to the Philippines, but the Americans said no. So there are many indications that the Philippines wanted an EDCA that will bring more benefits to the Philippines, except, guys, wag natin kalimutan, kailan na-sign yung EDCA? 2014. Kailan siya na-negotiate? Right after nung Scarborough Shoal, Panatag Shoal situation. So medyo desperado tayo nung time na yan. Kaya bilang isang Pilipino, I would say, I feel na EDCA was negotiated under circumstances of semi-desperation. And that's why I agree that the EDCA is not an optimally negotiated agreement. But to come up with totally new additions out of nowhere, I'm not sure how that's going to make sense kasi na-sign na yung agreement na yan. Now, if the EDCA if the Senate is against it, then maybe they should push for other initiatives